Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. This video is the fourth in a series looking at WordPress security plugins. In the first video, I looked at all-in-one WP security and firewall. In the second video, I looked at combining iThemes security and the BBQ firewall plugin. In the third video, we did a head-to-head comparison of PatchStack and Wordfence. And in this, the fourth video in the series, we're taking a look at several other security plugins that I've used. We're going to take a brief look at a what the heck solution, let's try it, combining iThemes security and Wordfence. We're going to look at Malcare, and we're going to look at WP Security Ninja. I'll end the video by reviewing the different WordPress security plugins mentioned and sharing my overall thoughts about them. So the first thing I want to look at is a what the heck, let's try it option. Years ago, it was not uncommon to see in discussion forums people mentioning that they used both the free version of iThemes Security and the free version of Wordfence together on the same site. Recently, a friend mentioned that they also use that combination, so I thought I'd take a quick look at it just to kind of see what the rationale is and what it involves. Here's the free version of iThemes Security in the WordPress plugin directory. If you go and you look down at the list of features, you see that this has a pretty robust list of features. And then if you go and look at Wordfence, here's Wordfence in the plugin directory, you'll see that it also has a pretty extensive list of features. So the rationale for using both plugins together is that although there's a lot of overlap, there are also several important places where one of the plugins has a really nice feature that the other one doesn't. And that's the situation with a number of WordPress security plugins, is that oftentimes there are some important things that they don't do. So people end up adding a couple of different plugins to fill in the gaps, and not surprisingly, there could be some overlap. So I think the way forward here is to carefully manage the features of the two to try to eliminate as much overlap being active as possible. Here we are back at the demo site that I used in the last video. We've got the free cadence theme, and I've got a coming soon in maintenance mode plugin, but the coming soon mode is off. Here are the plugins that I've got installed. We have iThemes Security here, and we have Wordfence Security. So I've already installed the free version of both. And we also have the P3 Plugin Performance Profiler plugin that I used in the last video to try to get an idea of the difference in memory consumption between the different options. So what I've done is I've tweaked the settings for iThemes Security and Wordfence to try to eliminate as much overlap as possible. Let's take a quick look at that. So I'm not using two-factor authentication, but I am using the iThemes Security login form protection. This is the local brute force, and this is the network brute force. And this is the first place where iThemes has a feature that Wordfence doesn't. Well, iThemes Free has the feature. The network brute force protection is a premium feature of Wordfence. The network brute force, that's where the vendor iThemes, they collect the IP addresses of the bad bots that have already been banned and share those among their network, and that way you don't have to let an IP address that's already been identified as a problem try multiple times to log in on your site. So it's kind of a shortcut. And that's a nice feature. So we're using the iThemes login form protection. I've turned off the site check scanning because we'll use Wordfence for that. And I've turned off these utilities. If we looked into advanced, I've turned off as many of these things as possible because a lot of these are part of the Wordfence firewall. This was the only one I wasn't able to turn off, so that's a duplicate. And then hide backend, that's not being used. Okay, so that's what I've done with the free version of iThemes Security. If we look at Wordfence, Wordfence has a firewall. iThemes Security doesn't. So there's a gap in iThemes security that Wordfence plugs. iThemes security also doesn't have much malware scanning, and Wordfence has pretty robust scanning. So this is the second place where the free version of Wordfence is providing something that iThemes security doesn't have. If we look at the actual firewall here, one of the parts of the firewall is brute force protection. This is the login form protection, and I've turned that off, okay, because we're using iThemes security. The other thing I've done, I don't think it makes a big difference here, but just so you know, is I went into the scan and scheduling options, and I set it for low resource usage scanning. While we're doing this test, there isn't any scanning going on, so in terms of the testing, I don't think it makes that much difference, but probably something to do, especially if you're on a server without tons of memory. What we've done by combining them is that we added the network brute force protection from iThemes security, and we added the firewall and advanced scanning options of Wordfence. Now, one of the things that I looked at previously when I was considering these two plugins separately is I took a look at the memory usage. This is the plugin performance profiler. What it does is it loads a bunch of pages and then takes an average of the resource usage. So it's probably not perfect, but it gives us a general idea. I'm going to do a scan, and we'll call this both 1. Okay, so we'll start the scan. And the second and third scans, I just kind of clip out stuff from the video to make the video shorter, but the scan runs through. This is the time used for loading each plugin. You can see that Wordfence takes up a lot, 33%, and iThemes security takes up 19%. They're not huge amounts of time overall, but relative to the site, that's what we're seeing. Okay, and then this is the stat that I'm interested in, which is the average memory usage per page. So I'm going to copy that and we'll save it here. And I've been running these scans 3 times to kind of get an average. Okay, and we look at the memory here, it's 25.85 megabytes. And last time. Okay, and then 27.08 megabytes. So we've got 26.616. So it's a cumulative result of iThemes plus Wordfence. It's not quite as much as totaling the two together, but still it's a pretty significant memory usage. The advantage of this option is that both plugins are free and you get a pretty wide range of security coverage. The disadvantage of this option is it's pretty memory intensive, probably not something to do on a site where you have low resources. And that's not something that I would probably use, but it could be an interesting option for some people. So what I use on a number of my sites is I use the patch stack firewall, which we looked at in the last video, together with Malcare. There is some overlap, but let me show you why I'm using it and what I get out of it. If we look at the pricing table, there's a middle option, and what it is, it's Malcare plus BlogVault. Okay, and BlogVault, it's a really nice off-site backup solution. I'm a big fan of it. I haven't had any problem restoring files or sites using BlogVault, and it just works. So I've been very pleased with using BlogVault. My plan also includes Malcare. What Malcare does is it takes a backup of your site, and then on the malware BlogVault server, it scans for malware. So the scanning doesn't slow down your site. That was one of the problems with Wordfence. They even have that option to use lower resource usage. A scan can be pretty resource intensive, and this is the Malcare solution to that. I like the malware scans that I get using this combination. Malcare also includes a firewall, which is what PatchStack has. And then again, this is just my opinion, so it may not be the final word, but my take on the Malcare firewall is that it's kind of lightweight in the continuum of paranoid, do a really great job, to let's not bother the user with false positives. I think the Malcare firewall is on that latter end. What happens is if after so many failed login attempts, it'll throw up a reCAPTCHA. That's one of the ways that it protects the login form. Anyway, that's what this paid option is that I use. Now, Malcare added a free version into the WordPress plugin directory. And let's see, that has 200,000 active installs already. So that's pretty good. 178 5-star reviews. 0 out of 1 support requests in the last 2 months. So it's not getting a ton of support requests. That's perhaps a good sign. So let's go down and look at what we get with the free version of Malcare. You get the cloud-based malware scanning, which is nice. You get the firewall, and you get CAPTCHA-based login page protection. So you get reCAPTCHA on the login page. So the one thing I wanted to point out is that the firewall rules for the free version of Malcare are updated once a week, whereas with the premium version of Malcare, they're updated multiple times a day. So let's go ahead now back to our test site. iThemes security doesn't have the firewall and doesn't have really robust malware scanning. So I'm going to deactivate Wordfence. And just as kind of a sanity check, before I install Malcare, let's run that P3 test just to make sure it's similar to what we got the other day. So I'm going to go to the plugin profiler and let's start our scan. We're going to call this iThemes again. 14.04. Pretty close to what we had. All right, so now let's go and add Malcare. I'm going to use a different email address here than I usually use because I don't want this to accidentally go into my paid plan and use that feature. I'm trying to look at the free plan here. All right, and it's scanning the website. It's taken me to the Malcare dashboard. And what it's doing here is it's backing up the site, bringing it over before it scans. So it's going to do a daily malware scan. All right, so I'll pause the video and give you an idea of about how long this takes. Okay, so when it completed, it went to this screen. It took about 4 minutes. So that's not too bad. Obviously, if you have a big website, it's going to take longer. I do have a fair amount of demo data, but it's just posts in a custom post type, so it's not a huge site. I'm leaving the firewall on. That's something that we could turn off, but I think this is actually fairly low profile in terms of resource usage, so I don't see any real problem leaving it on. I haven't ever had much of a conflict between this and PatchStack, which is what I use, so I'm assuming there wouldn't be much conflict with iThemes either. But you can turn it off if you don't want to use it. It did not find any issue. Site is clean. What it shows here, here's the dashboard for the site. It shows plugins, themes, users, backup. This is if you want to get the BlogVault. Here it would show you if you had themes or plugins or WordPress that could be updated. The activity log, I think, is also something that's a pro feature. Staging is a pro feature if you want to have a staging site. So these are some pro features. All right, so I guess we can go back to our site here. Okay, so we have Malcare installed. It brings this in and shows you, so that's nice. Let's go and do our profiling now. So that's all right. So on average, it's really not adding a great deal. In terms of memory usage, it was pretty minimal. I haven't used the Malcare free version before, but after this testing, I could see using this together, for example, with all-in-one WP security and firewall, or with iThemes security. It seems like it might be a nice addition to use there, and it's very lightweight. So there's one more plugin that I want to discuss. So the last plugin I want to look at is WP Security Ninja Pro. So there is a free version of this. Is what this does is it does the tests. It will tell you if you have a plugin or theme out of date. It's not actually going to secure your site. It's just a huge list of tests. I've got that on a different testing site, so I'm not going to be able to run the profiler to get the exact same comparison in terms of memory usage. On this site right now, this is the one I use for testing the all-in-one WP security. And I've got the BBQ firewall on here, and the Security Ninja Premium is deactivated. So I'm not really going to go through the whole configuration process. I just wanted to show you a couple of things about it and share my experience with it. So I'm activating it. The license is already there. To look at the premium, I guess I need to activate the license. This was on here before, so it's using a lot of the settings that I had before. See, what it does is you run the tests, and it tells you how many have passed, how many have failed, and it gives you a score based on that. So here, for example, it says, check if the WordPress version is revealed. In some cases, it will actually fix it for you, but in other cases, it tells you what to do. So this isn't quite as user-friendly as some of the other security plugins. See, it's telling you add this snippet, basically. The Pro version has a scanner, it has a firewall, it has a scheduler for scanning, it will do a malware scan. So it tends to pick up a lot of false positives, but it can find things sometimes that you might want to look at. It has an event log, and you can white label it. Now, you notice that I activated the license, but it's still in the free version. So that's kind of a little odd. See it saying activate license again? Okay, now these are enabled. Anyway, so this kind of way of doing the checks and fixes is not the most user-friendly, but I had a license to this, and so I wanted to try it out. I put it on one of my testing sites. I had it on the site for several months, and one time I came into the site and there was a notice that said that WP Security Ninja was having trouble connecting to the Freemius dashboard. Obviously it connected to the dashboard when I installed it and activated it because I configured all these things. So I went through and made sure it was connected again. I don't use these sites all the time, and that's why I have main WP child here so that I can go in and run the updates remotely without needing to log in. Well, I came back to this site after a while, and I found that WP Security Ninja had deactivated itself and gone back into free mode, which is only the diagnostic mode to check for security issues. Again, for some reason, it was unable to connect to the Freemius dashboard. So I was pretty disappointed in that because gosh, a security plugin is one thing you don't want to kind of go AWOL. For that reason, I've stopped using Security Ninja. Okay, so that's my experience with WP Security Ninja. Now, what I'd like to do is review the different plugins that I've mentioned in this series and give my high-level opinion about the different ones and when they might be used. So some discussion and conclusion now. In this review, I looked specifically at 4 main solutions for securing a website. That is all-in-one WP security, the BBQ firewall with iThemes security, PatchStack, and Wordfence. And I've also looked at several other security plugins. So here's my summary and assessment and recommendations based on what I've used. All-in-one WP Security and Firewall. I think this is a solid free option that's a good choice for a single user website. I recommend two-factor authentication for administrators of e-commerce and membership sites. And this plugin doesn't have two-factor authentication, so I wouldn't use it on those type of sites. But I'm running all-in-one WP security on that demo site, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm thinking I'll use it more often. Next is the BBQ Firewall Free and Pro. I think BBQ Firewall is a great plugin. It pairs well with iThemes security, which doesn't include a firewall. It's lightweight and problem-free. I use both versions, the free and pro BBQ Firewall plugin, and I just consider it 5-star. iThemes Security Free or Pro together with the BBQ Firewall. iThemes doesn't have a firewall, and that's a gap. Obviously, lots of people secure their sites just using iThemes Security, so it's all a matter of your judgment on how many steps you need to take, and it depends some on your hosting and the type of website you have. But I think that this combo is a good workable option. iThemes has lots of good lockdown options and login protection, and BBQ provides some trouble-free PHP firewall. Malcare Free. I haven't used this before, but just from our testing that I did in this video, it looks like it might be a good free option to add malware scanning. The firewall rules are a week behind, but I think that Malcare could possibly be used together with all-in-one WP security to get some malware scanning with that. On any site where I need a daily backup, I use BlogVault with Malcare Pro. I think BlogVault is stellar, and Malcare, I like the fact that it does an off-site scan so it doesn't bog down your site. This solution, the two together, is more expensive than a simple backup plugin, but it's been problem-free and I'm happy with it. PatchStack Free doesn't do much for me. It notifies you if you have a plugin, theme, or WordPress that has a known vulnerability. They did mention, which I didn't show in the video, that you can sign up to use the central dashboard even if you are just using the PatchStack Free. I'm sure all of the pro features of PatchStack are disabled, but if you want to check your multiple sites to see if they have any vulnerable plugin, then that's an option. But like I said, PatchStack Free doesn't do much for me. PatchStack Pro, I like PatchStack Pro and use it on many of my sites. The team is focused solely on security. I think it's pretty easy to configure and it has a lot of good options. The central online dashboard is nice. I like it when I'm looking at an individual site. The kind of overview of all your sites doesn't do much for me personally. And I think it would be a nice improvement for PatchStack if it had some malware scanning. That's why I use it with BlogVault and Malcare Pro. Wordfence Free. This is the most popular security plugin solution in the WordPress plugin directory. It's a bit difficult to configure, but it has a good set of features. Be wary of it using too much memory. Like the PatchStack team, the Wordfence team is focused on WordPress security, and it seems to do a good job supporting its free users. So I think that's a solid option. The online dashboard is nice if you have more than one site. Wordfence Pro, one of the quote-unquote problems in choosing security plugins is that there tend to be gaps in different ones. Well, the Pro version of Wordfence is the most feature-rich single security plugin. It's backed by a team of professionals whose only job is security. Like the free version, it's a bit difficult to configure, and it's probably the most expensive standalone security plugin, and it uses a lot of resources, but I'm guessing it's the most popular paid option. And from looking at the comments of Wordfence users, their users are very happy with Wordfence. and I think it's a solid option also. WP Security Ninja Pro. I include this plugin in the review because I've used it. Your mileage may vary, but I was kind of disappointed with it and I'm not using it now. That's my review and share about WordPress security plugins. There's a companion article available on the WebTNG website, which covers all of the plugins mentioned in the 4 videos. I hope you found this review interesting and that you got some good information from it. Thank you for watching.